So she's asking about the ability to read energy and also whether it's changed for me, because I did have a certain sense of it as a child. But I think many spiritual people have that. That's why we're spiritual. We're just not aware of it because we're not taught. I couldn't have said this when I was a child. Oh, I'm reading the energy. I just sensed certain energies. And you can go into places and you can sense there's a different vibration there than there is in other places. I mean, I always found that nature had a higher vibration than, for example, a graveyard or a bar, which I don't remember ever going into as a child, but I could sense something there, and even from the outside, and for that matter, a church, which I didn't sense had a good vibration either. So I do think that the masters are given this example. You can center in your heart chakra, or the center of the heart, and you can sense whether the energies go up and down. And I think we can all learn that, to sense that to some degree. And I think my ability to read energy has gotten better over the years, simply because I've become more neutral. I don't think as much anymore. I don't have as much evaluation and judgment going on in what they call the linear mind. Whereas, when I was new to the path, or even when I was a child, there was always this voice in my head evaluating every situation, thinking, analyzing, judging. Some call it the inner critic. It's always criticizing ourselves. So, and this works against your intuition, because the intuition gives you kind of just a sensation for the energy. The way I look at intuition is really, you're reading the energy. And this inner voice is always trying to evaluate and analyze. Oh, it shouldn't be this way, it shouldn't be that way. There was just somebody today who was talking to me about Henry Kissinger, and saying that he'd always felt that he sounds so right on the outer, and he's always so well-spoken, but he always sensed there was something about him that wasn't right. And that's an example of how you can have somebody who on the outer, they seem to be, a good person or a knowledgeable person. But if you tune in with your heart, you can just sense there's something off in their vibration, their energy. There's like an underlying energy that just isn't pure, isn't balanced. And that's what I can sense more and more. I tend to not use it as much anymore, because I don't want to judge people too much. But I generally can sense it. So it's almost like, take this situation with the Ukraine war. When I first heard about it, I didn't analyze it. I didn't think about it. I just saw intuitively how Russia was put on a downward track instantly by that decision. And I didn't see specifics, but I just sensed that this was not a good movement because of the whole downward turn of the energetic level. And it's, for me, it's very important, if you want to read energy, to think about this with the analytical linear mind, because it'll always work against it. And I have some people that I have known for probably 30 years, and then we're in the Summit Lighthouse for many years. And they got pulled in by Trump and his talk about the election being stolen. They believed it, totally. And they think it's because they have Christhood, they have Christ discernment. So they can see what's wrong with the mainstream media and what's good about Trump and how he's doing this and he's doing that. But to me, I just read his vibration, and I can just sense there's something off. No, this is not a Christed person. And you can actually learn to read whether someone is a fallen being or not. I don't use that with ordinary people, but when I look at the world perspective, I can. I will sometimes look at someone on TV and, oh, that's a fallen being. What's that person talking about? You know, and then I know that all of the outer arguments they come up with don't really matter, because there's a hidden intention behind it. You know, and some of these fallen beings, they are so good at coming up with arguments that it's very difficult to come up with a rational, intellectual argument against it, or it's very difficult to prove them wrong, because they can always, you know, twist it and turn it. But when you can read the energy behind it, you don't even need to do that, but because you just see. But the person has, the vibration is off. There's some kind of intention behind it that isn't pure or balanced. And I think we can all come to that point. What have the masters said? They have said, we're living on a very dense planet, right? Where the energies themselves are dense, matter is dense. And what that means is that things can be hidden. For example, they have said, you know, we can't see that matter is actually spiritual light that's shining through this wood. But more than that, intentions can be hidden. So people can put on a facade, and this is what the fallen beings have made use of since they came to the planet. You can put on a facade where, according to all the outer things, you appear to be a good person, maybe even a religious person or a spiritual guru. But behind it, they have a different intent. It could be to glorify themselves, it could be to control people, it could be to just pure destruction, like it talks about in My Life's book, with Satan, who just wants to destroy. So this is the one feature on Earth that we have, is that it's possible to create a facade, and when you look at it from the outside with the analytical mind, you can't see anything wrong there. It seems to be perfectly all right. That seems to be a perfectly wise person who knows what he's talking about. But when you read the vibrational level, you see that the vibration is below a certain point, and therefore this is not a Christed being that's saying this. You know, and you just read that. I'm not saying I can do it infallibly, but I do it many, many times. I just see this, and that's why. But you see, if somebody believes that they have Christhood and that's why they believe in Trump, I can't come up with an argument. There's no argument I can come up with, because it's plausible deniability, plausible possibility. They can always come up with something that in their mind seems more real than what I'm saying. But see, for me, the reality is not in the argument. Whether it's their argument or anything I could come up with, that's not where the reality is. The reality is in the vibration. And you just read that person's vibration and you sense, it's just below that level of Christhood, because the person has an intent, a hidden intent, a hidden agenda. And in Trump's case, it's all about himself. I mean, he just wants to glorify himself. He has this track in his mind. Every situation he evaluates, how is it going to reflect on me? How's it going to make me look good? That's the only thing that matters to him. And that's not the Christ that does that. And for me, I think you could probably even create a scientific instrument that could read the actual vibration. And you could see that below a certain frequency, that's below the level of Christhood. And beyond that, you have some levels of Christhood that can become more and more pure. But below that, it's definitely not. Yeah. Yeah, and it's not something I have deliberately tried to do. It's not something I've made any effort to do, but it has just happened as a result of becoming more neutral. It becomes easier to go beyond that track in the mind that wants it to be a certain way. So in other words, for example, Trump again, this person, there was one person that accused me of being biased towards Trump. But I wasn't particularly biased. You know, I didn't think, well, he was president, he was a bad president. And when he got elected, I thought, well, could he be worse than Hillary? I mean, Hillary also has a lower vibration. uh, one fallen being over another. I mean, what's worse there, So, I think I was fairly neutral about it, but there just came a point where I looked at him and I thought, oh, the guy's a fallen being. And that was not my argumentative mind that came up, that wanted it to be a certain way and tried to find arguments for or against it. There, on the other hand, I saw the other person. He clearly wanted Trump to be the good guy, and he was only looking at what supported that and disregarding anything that didn't support it. And I'm not talking about Trump here. I don't care about Trump. But I'm just trying to say it as, if we are not neutral, we can't read the energy, because we are projecting with our minds what we want it to be. In order to read energy, you have to be completely neutral, and then you just sense, oh, it's below the level. Yeah, and it's not only that. I mean, I can look back at my own life, many situations where I received an intuitive impulse, and then I didn't act on it because my argumentative mind immediately started saying, oh, this can't be right. It's got to be this way. And so I disregarded the intuitive impulse. And later it turned out that the intuitive impulse was very accurate. It was just my outer mind wouldn't accept it. And that's why I'm saying the more neutral you are, because many times I think people, you get a certain intuitive reading of the vibration, but your outer mind starts overriding it right away. And sometimes people don't even realize what's going on. I'm catching myself more and more, but it still happens. I mean, we were just at dinner yesterday and we had ordered some chicken. 4 people had ordered chicken breast. And it came, and I had an intuitive sense there was something wrong with it. But I thought, take a bite and see. And then I took a bite and started chewing it. I could feel it was raw. It wasn't cooked in the middle. It was only on the outside. So I had to spit it out. But then I thought, did I swallow some bacteria before I spat it out, or what? I could have just acknowledged that and said, well, let me cut it up and see if it's fried inside, but I didn't. And there are many examples like that where you sense this and you don't act on it. Of course, it's all about resolving psychology. Yeah. Because you see what I just said. Everything can be hidden. You can create a facade. There an outer appearance that appears a certain way, but the energy never lies. It never cheats. You cannot disguise the vibration. They can hide behind a facade. They can't hide their vibration. So the thing is, if you are in your psychology, you want this to be right. In terms of Trump, if that person had been willing to listen to me, I would have said, why is it that it's so important for you that Trump is right? Why is it in your psychology you have this need? If you could find out what that need is and resolve it, you could look at the situation neutrally. And so what I'm trying to say is, so many times our psychology overrides our intuition, overrides the reading of vibration. And therefore, almost before we acknowledge we had that reading of the vibration, the outer mind is already going, but no, it can't be that way. It's got to be this way, because here's the argument why. And it sort of goes both ways. That's the sort of the difficult part of it, is that I have known people, especially in the summit, who wanted to have some clairvoyant ability, who wanted to be able to read people's auras, for example. And by having that intention, they didn't get an accurate reading. They were projecting something onto it. So they set themselves up as psychics or aura readers or this or that. So it's a very delicate balance. That's why I'm saying I'm not doing anything to cultivate that ability. What I'm trying to say also is that you have if you have an intent of you want an outer situation to be a certain way, that's one thing. But if you have the intent that you want to be special because you can read vibration, that can also screw it up. This is why I'm saying, if you have the intent of developing psychic ability, you most likely will not be neutral like I'm talking about. and you can't read the vibration accurately because you're projecting something onto it. But it's important. I mean, you bring up the point of psychic abilities, and there are many people who will say that this ability to read vibration is a psychic ability, but I wouldn't say it that way, because to me it's way beyond psychic ability. It's actually more of a Christic ability, because what many people mean with a psychic ability is extrasensory perception, where you are seeing something with the inner eye that you can't see with the physical eye, like people's auras, for example. And so that's what, as I said, I knew many people in the summit that wanted desperately to have some kind of psychic ability. And I also met them outside the summit, and so if you have that intent, you're almost guaranteed to tie into the mental level, where there are beings who will give you certain abilities to read certain things that can impress other people. But the price you pay is you tie yourself to these beings in the mental, and that's not the ascended level. So it's very hard to go beyond that level once you're tied into it. So to me, this is just a matter of reading the vibration and sensing if it's above or below a certain level. And if it's below, it's not the Christic level. It doesn't mean you have to say, oh, this is a fallen being, but sometimes I get this impression that's a fallen being. But many times I just get, there's something off with the vibration. Yeah. I mean, you can get this, but I just always felt that, I've seen people who wanted these abilities and who got some kind of ability, and it was very difficult for them, to after some time. In the beginning, they were all elated about it, but after some time, it got very difficult, and they got trapped in it, and they couldn't go beyond that level. I actually met somebody once who, without doing anything about it, her third eye had been opened, at least to a certain degree. And she said it was actually very difficult because you saw a lot of lower manifestations that were not very pretty. And so I think personally, I see this as an ability. You can read the vibration, and that can be very helpful to you. But it's not something I go around doing all the time. I just let it happen when it happens, because we are in physical embodiment, and there's a reason why the physical senses are limited, that why the eyes can see only the vibrations they can see, because it would be overwhelming to see the astral plane, for example. So it's again this, we have to be able to function in life. And that means you can basically say, in a sense you can say, why can't we see auras? Well, because it would be too overwhelming for us. So we had to tune out what wasn't necessary for functioning. Now, in a sense, we have gone too far with this, and that's why we don't have the intuition also. So it is a delicate balance to get back some of the ability without being overwhelmed by it. I mean, you can't function in life if every time you meet a person you have to give them a reading of their aura. How far are you going to get if you're walking down the street one day? So I'm just trying to say there has to be a balance in everything, and that's why I'm saying I'm not doing anything to develop this, but I can just see as I become more neutral, I get more intuitive impressions, and I get better at paying attention to them and not overriding them.